Hello and welcome to video 2 of Facebook Ads Measurement and Mastery 2017. In this video, we're going to talk about how to focus on the right metrics and the most efficient views to see them. We're also going to talk a little bit about LTV and some other really important concepts for growing your business. Now, just as a reminder, from our first video, we saw the whole point of this course is to try to help you make better decisions. And if you're making decisions on bad or misinterpreted data, you're wasting major money, right? So that's the problem that we're trying to solve for here. We're going to help you make the right decisions and interpret your data the right way, primarily in Facebook Ads Manager. And our overall objective at the end of the day is to increase ROI. So from video 1, if you remember, if you haven't seen video 1, go back, check it out. We went through some basics about how Facebook counts results, and we talked a little bit about attribution windows and how they have an impact on measurement depending on the temperature of your audience. All right, so in this video number 2, like I said in the first video, this is going to kind of be like probably the most meaty / most important video of this series because we're going to talk about some strategy or strategic decisions and some subject matter that's really important to your overarching business as a whole, not just in Facebook ads, but we're going to frame them, into the context of Facebook ads. All right, so real quick, let's preview what we're going to learn in this video, and then we'll get into it. So number 1, the first thing we're going to talk about is the number 1 most important piece of advice that I can give you for scaling and growing your business to the levels you've dreamed of. And it's not about CPA. I'll go ahead and give you a hint. Number 2, we're going to talk about how to renew your focus on the metrics that matter. Let's help you get rid of the noise and focus on the signal that's coming from your data, which is vital to your success. We're going to talk a little bit I'm going to give you kind of a glimpse at the holy grail of data-driven advertising. And I think that'll be kind of a cool illustration for you. Then we're going to go into Ads Manager. I'm going to show you our favorite reporting view. When we're checking results and monitoring the ongoing performance of campaigns. I'm going to show you the columns, how we set it up, and how you can use it to expedite your optimization workflow. So again, we don't want to spend all of our time in these slides. We want to give you some actual real examples of how to implement some of this advice. Number 5, we're going to talk about the RUD technique, which is just my fancy marketing way of it's just a little technique I'll show you that'll help you save a ton of hours of work and wasteful ad spend. Very simple, but very effective. And then we're going to talk about how to triangulate to scale your most profitable campaigns using roll-ups and breakdowns in Ads Manager. So when you get out of this video, I hope that you'll have a better kind of workflow as you're monitoring your campaigns and that you can spend less time tinkering and more time making profitable decisions. Okay, so part 1, let's talk about the right metrics. So the question is, how are you optimizing your ad spend today, right? And we're talking about Facebook ads primarily. So what metrics are you using to make decisions? So what options do you have? Take a second and think about how you're doing that today. Now, what are our options here, right? What can we use as our metric to make decisions and to optimize and scale? So here's some of the options you have. Reach would be one. How many people am I reaching? What's my CPM? So what's my cost to deliver impressions to my audience? What's my cost per click? In the case of getting people over to your website, and we're mainly talking about website conversion ads here. So it could be cost per click. Could be CPA, where CPA could be the cost for any important action. We might be talking about, cost per action for a lead. We could be talking about CPA for a purchase, CPA for any conversion event. And we could also look at ROI. So I have ST-ROI, which I'm just calling short-term ROI, and it's an important distinction there because the next one level down is LTV. Now, just real quickly on these options, in the old days of digital marketing, before the pixel technology and before a lot of the advanced capabilities that programmatic advertising has brought to the forefront, believe it or not, you might find this surprising, but people were optimizing and spending money and using reach, things like reach and CPM as a metric to make decisions. Now, if you've been doing Facebook ads for a while, you know these things are supplementary important, but certainly not your primary KPI. If your primary KPI is reach or CPM, then I have a long list of brand agencies that would love to speak with you. But most of us are direct response focused marketers. We're looking to perform profitable acquisitions. So those are ruled out. We can't use reach or CPM. Those are off the table. Cost per click. Now, this is one I still see some advertisers optimizing to, especially if your pixel's not set up correctly. Now, the clicks don't necessarily correlate with sales. You probably know this, and you might have seen this in practice. Now, it's not to say you should never use website clicks as your optimization objective. I'm just saying that it will fall short relative to other metrics that we have available, right? Because just because someone clicks a lot of ads, or you're optimizing towards people who tend to click on links, doesn't mean those people are going to be the most qualified and have the highest intent to actually take a meaningful action with your business. Okay, so cost per click, not preferable. I wouldn't recommend it. So that leads us to the next one, which is CPA, right? If our campaign objective is leads, we might be optimizing to cost per lead, and that's okay. Better than nothing, better than click, I would say. But still, there's two parts to that equation. We'll talk about that in a second in terms of what are we getting, what's the value we're deriving from our ads. So CPA, cost per acquisition, a supplementary metric, yes, I would not recommend optimizing towards CPA. The next option is the most attainable and the most immediately actionable, which is the short-term ROI. Now, I'm saying short-term here because I'm really just talking about the ROI that shows up in Ads Manager, right? I'm talking about if I spend $100 on my ad set and then my purchase conversion value comes back at $200, I'm talking about that fraction, right? So the revenue less the cost divided by the cost gives you your ROI. And at least in this situation, we're optimizing towards the net benefit to the business, right? So even if I have an audience that has a higher CPA, they might also buy more stuff. They might be more valuable. So that's why we need both sides. We need the cost and the revenue to make an intelligent decision about where to allocate our marketing dollars. Then at the bottom of this list, we have LTV, which is lifetime value. You might see this as customer lifetime value. We'll talk more about that in just a second. Okay, so my recommendation here would be to use ROI as the first step here, and then we'll talk more about LTV. So ROI tracking, why do this and what do you need to do it? So like I already mentioned, CPA, or your cost per action, is only a small part of the picture, right? We don't necessarily want to get the most people for the cheapest. We want to get the most profitable people in a way that we can scale. So in order for us to calculate ROI, which you'd be surprised, I still see a lot of advertisers, and this goes for big businesses, small business, across the board, where they are not passing the correct conversion value for their transactions. And I'm primarily talking about purchases here. Typically, we'll talk about lead value in a minute, but for now, I'm just talking about the value of the purchase. Now, in e-commerce environments like Shopify, it's fairly easy to set up tagging to dynamically pass back the order value into your Facebook pixel. If you have a WordPress site or a membership site or something that's not quite as templated and standardized as a Shopify store, where Shopify has incredible template capabilities where you can pass all this stuff dynamically very easily with just some slight modifications to your theme code, and they even offer a native Facebook pixel implementation that will help you with this, right? But for you folks out there who aren't on Shopify or aren't on an e-commerce platform where this is easy to do, What that means is that you're going to need to set this up in your pixel, in your tagging, right? So we need to be using standard events. If you're not familiar with standard events or how to do this value pass, I'm not going to cover the technicals of how to do it, but we have a full pixel guide that's it's an asset or a piece of content we've had for a couple of years now. We've updated it a couple times, and this is a little video mini series on how to set up your pixel. We give a lot of examples of different scenarios and how to do it. So if you don't know what to do there, or you're a little confused about how to set this up, go to funnelboom.com/FBP, and you should be able to get the course there, the training through Gumroad. We should have a Gumroad widget there. It's pay what you want. You can get it for free, or if you want to pay $5 or $50 or whatever, you can grab it there. Now, the other thing I'll say is some people don't want to deal with learning that. There is a bit of a learning curve there. If you want just direct help with your tagging, whether you want us to just audit what you have right now and give you recommendations on what to do, or if you want us to audit and fix it, this is one of the big services that we provide, probably the thing we do more than anything else. And you can contact us about that at funnelboom.com/taghelp. The pricing and so forth just depends on the size of your funnel and what all you're looking to test. So there's just a couple plugs for the ways that we might be able to help you. Sometimes it's less painful or more efficient to just have someone help you with it who's well versed in these things versus taking the time to learn it yourself. But there's always value in learning how to fish. So we talked a little bit about short-term ROI, right? So in the absence of LTV, we want to optimize to ROI, short-term ROI. We want to at least know our value and our cost in our ad sets. Now, the next step of kind of evolution or sophistication, and this is the way that we try to take all of our clients in, we try to move them in this direction, is towards LTV. So like we were talking about relative to ROI, how can you increase your profitability from your advertising? So there's two sides of it, right? You could focus on decreasing costs, so decreasing your CPA, getting more efficient at that, or you can focus on increasing the revenue, so the derived value from every conversion. Now, what I'm going to argue and what my stance is on this, and for a multitude of reasons, but the one thing I see people not focusing on as much as they can and should is maximizing customer LTV. If I go back to this simple kind of simplification of how you can make more money, what you'll notice is that the decreased costs, right? So you can drive your CPA down low, you can test different ads, test your funnel, increase your conversion rates throughout the funnel, and eventually you'll reach a point of diminishing returns where your CPA levels out, and maybe you start at $10 CPA for a purchase, and you can get that down to maybe $5, $4, whatever. But if the revenue stays constant, you're going to hit a point where you're going to plateau, right? And eventually, once you really have a lot of scale, where it might even start to your net margin between cost and revenue might start to erode, because as your reach increases, as you're reaching people who are maybe not quite in your primary market, typically your cost, your CPA is going to go up as you scale. I mean, that's just a fact of the matter. I'm not saying it's impossible to scale, huge and maintain profitability. But what I'm saying is another side of this that you can control is maximizing customer LTV. Now, this doesn't have so much to do with your Facebook ads as much as it has to do with your funnels, and your marketing automation / what Russell Brunson calls value ladder. I think Ryan Dice at Digital Marketer has a different term for it. I think CVO, customer value optimization. So this is not a novel concept that I've come up with for sure. There's a lot of very smart people who are talking about this, but I still don't see many businesses even, they're not focusing on it. They're usually not even measuring LTV. So let's talk a little bit about how we can get to that state. So like I mentioned, this is kind of what I see from the breakdown of where people are focusing their attention and focusing their efforts on optimization. About 70% try to just minimize CPA. They might not even be getting the right conversion values back. If they are getting conversion values back at all, dynamically, maybe they're not right, or they know they're not right. 20% maximize or focused on maximizing the short-term ROI. So that would be the immediate, what do I get back from my ad spend? What's showing up in Ads Manager? And then maybe 10% or less are focused on maximizing LTV. So why is it that so few people or so few businesses are focused on LTV? Well, I don't think it's necessarily like an issue of being lazy or being incompetent or anything like that. Not by a long stretch. One reason is LTV can be complicated. It can be difficult to track. It can be difficult to have an ongoing way to measure it and keep an eye on LTV across different cohorts and all kinds of things. So let's talk about LTV, the how and the why. Okay, first, how do we calculate LTV? What is LTV? I'm going to give you a very high-level definition of it. And then if you're interested in the nuts and bolts and you want to geek out on the math and all the really advanced ways to do it, if you look up Peter Fader, he's from Wharton School of Business at Penn. And so Peter Fader and Bruce Hardy are the two guys who are kind of the not pioneers, but the leaders in both academic research and actual implementations of advanced LTV tracking. But in a nutshell, LTV is what's the expected value of a customer over the lifetime, over their lifetime with your business, right? And typically from an advertising standpoint, if we're acquiring new people, we're looking at expected LTV, right? So we don't know if we're looking backwards at existing customers and measuring their value. That's just customer profitability or customer value. But expected LTV, all right, so if we're acquiring new leads and new customers, expected LTV is how do we anticipate that their value will chart out over the course of 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, and then the lifetime, right? Why is LTV so important? Let me go back real quick. So if you wanted to do a simple measurement of LTV or expected LTV, you can basically just take your customers, and this would be using your past data to proxy future behavior, but you could take your customers and then you could basically just have a customer on each row, and then you're just going to find the value for each customer over their lifetime. So if you have an email service provider or a CRM, there's a lot of ways you can do this, but we just want to know, what's the average LTV, the median LTV, and what's the distribution look like, which is really important. Even if you're just going to start by doing that simple exercise of finding what is my average LTV for a customer, it's important to look at the distribution of LTV. And when I say distribution, I mean like a histogram, right? Because you might have 2 customers or 4 customers that spend $10,000, and then you have a lot of other customers that just spend $50. Well, your average in that case is going to be overly inflated, right? We don't want to necessarily, we have to be very careful with averages. So that's my one disclaimer about this. So why is LTV so important to us as advertisers? It seems like this topic is more about marketing automation and nurturing and business, deepening our relationship with our existing customers. Well, it's important because it has a huge impact on your bid and how you can scale. What we need to know about the Facebook auction system and the way that we are able to reach people and scale our offers is that if what you need to be bidding for is your expected true value of a customer, right? Now, let's say that my expected true value for a customer is $100, but yours is $250, and we're targeting the same people. We're going after the same audiences on Facebook. Well, with the higher bid and the higher expected value, you're going to be able to reach and scale much higher than I am, because I'm going to hit a point where if I'm putting in my manual bid at 100 and you're bidding 250, I'm going to run out of audience before you are. And so your delivery and your success are highly dependent upon, number one, your ability to know your LTV, and number two, your ability to get more reach and to scale based off of that number. I'm going to put a link in the notes to an article from smartly.io, which they're an awesome tool for Facebook ad management, and they have a lot of really cool optimization features. But either way, they have a great blog too. I'm going to put a link to an article that they wrote recently about how the Facebook auction system works and about bidding and all that. So I'll put a link there, and they have a really good write-up on with some specifics. Now let's talk about the holy grail of data-driven digital advertising. Now this is, again, overly simplified because we're not trying to get too deep into the math and the Greek of everything that's going on here. But if you were able to access Facebook's data set and you had the data skills to know the expected conversion rate and the expected LTV of every single person on Facebook, given your business and your funnels and your marketing automation, then your life would get a lot easier, right? Because if I know everything about someone, it's easy to model propensity, like how likely are they to convert, and to model their expected LTV based on, we would start with our set of existing customers, and then we would take that data, build a model, and then extrapolate it out to and apply it to the cold audience, right? So the people that we're trying to acquire now. So in my chart here, and I know this might get a little bit mathy and complicated, but in my chart here, I've got 4 people, and they're representing different segments. So as I was mentioning earlier with LTV and why average LTV can be somewhat dangerous, there's going to be segments of people who are going to be worth a lot more than other segments of people. Now, why is that? Let's think about the drivers of expected LTV, right? What could cause someone to be more profitable? Well, there's demographic information, right? So you might find that women aged 25 to 34 tend to be twice as valuable as men, in a very simple kind of example. It could also be based upon more around how you're marketing to them. So what's the acquisition tactic that you're using to bring them into your business and the experience they get, right? Maybe I have 5 lead magnets, 4 quizzes, giveaways. I have all these different lead acquisition and customer acquisition metrics or tactics. And the way that I'm acquiring those leads would have an impact on the expected LTV of the customer. Further, it could be different across channels. So Facebook ads, you might find that they have a lower lifetime value. A customer acquired from Facebook might be lower lifetime value than someone acquired through, say, affiliate, right? So, and I put infinite down below there because there's, Facebook has over 250 some odd thousand data points that they consider when building a lookalike audience. And this is essentially what they're trying to get to for you, is who are the people that are most likely or the most similar to your whatever base audience you're giving them. But it's very hard, and this is why I'm calling it the Holy Grail. I'm not saying that this is easily obtainable or obtainable at all, because you would need to know all of Facebook's data. You need to know their full data set to calculate this at the person, the individual level, but they're not going to give you access to that. But what we can do is work towards it. So we start from short-term ROI, or maybe a high-level view of LTV across our customer base. And as we move to the right over here, right? So if we had all these data points and we could come up with these values, we could bid differently for different people or for different segments of people. But if we're going to try to just make this actionable and kind of attainable, what a lot of businesses are doing on Facebook, and one of the ways that you can kind of action upon this is that if you know the expected LTV for a customer and you multiply the expected LTV for a customer times your conversion rate of leads to customers. Now you know your bid for leads, right? So now I know my expected value for a lead. Now, both of these things, the expected LTV and the conversion rate of lead to customer, are both really heavily impacted by your quote unquote value ladder, which is what Russell Brunson calls it, I believe. So how do you go from a tripwire or a low priced offer to a core offer? How are you getting people into different sub funnels and upsells and downsells? Do you have a long-term play like a membership site that has recurring revenue? That can make a huge difference. So your value ladder, your marketing automation, and then the things you're doing cross-channel can have a huge impact on your expected LTV and your conversion rate of lead to customer. But if we know the expected LTV and we have a good idea of our conversion rate of lead to customer, we can at least derive our bid, so our true value for a lead. And typically, I can't speak for all businesses, but typically it's a lot easier to scale a lead campaign if you have a really compelling lead acquisition tactic like a quiz or a really strong free course or lead magnet. It's typically easier to scale to a lead versus trying to do your full funnel in Facebook, just because you have to pay for all those Facebook ads to reach them at different parts of the funnel. Once they become a lead, now it gets handed over to your email marketing, maybe your messenger ads. You get them into a channel where you're not paying for the follow-up touches, which is really important. And they're hopefully going to be building rapport and trust with you over time, and that makes them more valuable and forces them to have higher expected future value. Okay, so how do we get there? Well, like I said, you're not really not today, not with the current landscape. It's not really possible to do that level of prospect level LTV. There are some tools out there, enterprise level, that are pretty dang close and pretty cool, but for most businesses, that's not really that's not a tractable solution due to cost. And due to like the amount of the type of skill you would need to have on staff to keep this kind of system going and updated and refreshed. So again, if we're going to try to get there, and I'm going to give you a path to get to starting to measure your business and measure your ads based on LTV, start with the basics. So let's figure out our overall average LTV and the distribution of that LTV, right? Again, that's important, not just average, but the distribution, and our value per lead. Right, so if we know value per lead, that gives us a lot of ammunition. If we know average value per customer, that gives us some ammunition. Once you have that high level metric, then you can start to break it down by other segmentation data you have available. So how were they acquired? What was the mix of channels that got them there? What was the initial product they bought? In the case of like an e-commerce store, you might want to know, is it worth offering? What's my value of someone who comes in on a free plus shipping offer versus someone who I give a big discount on a core product to up front? So I might have different tactics that I'm using to try to acquire new customers, and these tactics and the type of product they acquire first can have an impact and can cause differences in expected LTV. And then this will be an iterative process. This is certainly not easy. I'm not going to go through like exactly how to do this, but I'll tell you that for e-commerce businesses, typically this is a little bit easier just because you have a lot more data to work with. But the long and short of it is, use your CRM, use your email system. So you want to try to pass in data to your CRM or your email platform about how you're acquiring them, what lead magnets they opted in for, and all that good stuff. All right, so that's all I'm going to talk about for LTV. Let me just add one more thing here. As platforms mature, platforms like Facebook or Google AdWords or whatever, pick a platform. Essentially, at the beginning, there's typically kind of a gold rush or a first actor. There's inefficiencies on the platform in terms of you can really extract a ton of ROI and a ton of value from these platforms, because as other businesses and competitors are trying to solve the same problems you are on the platform, how to best acquire customers, etc., There's a lot of value there, and you can kind of just go in and make a lot of money, and even just by, not necessarily being that scientific about it, just because the competition hasn't driven up the prices in the auction yet, right? So paid search, Facebook, all these ad platforms, programmatic buys, they're all driven by auction systems, and it's all based on what you're willing to pay for something versus your competition. So why is this so important, LTV, for long-term success? Well, once a platform reaches a point of maturity, you'll see this on AdWords today. There's folks who already, these costs are they're bid very high because this platform has been around for a while. Companies are very sophisticated with their AdWords strategies, with their keyword strategy, and their they know what their expected value is going to be for different keywords. Same thing happens on other platforms, including Facebook. We're already seeing that, I think, in that it's becoming a lot more competitive. Some things that were working 2 years ago, like gangbusters, are just not churning out the same ROI. And a lot of that has to do with increased competition. So a lot of bigger brands are getting heavy into Facebook ads because they see the response rates relative to traditional channels like display. And they're saying, okay, well, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to bid for the same people that you're bidding for, right? So in order for you to win that competition, the only way, after the platform costs have reached a plateau where, well, the costs have been driven up to this point where this is kind of where the market sits, what you're going to have to pay to reach these folks and to convert them. Now, the only thing that you have control over that would help you be able to scale and to outperform your competition would be the value, right? So I'd say, if you try to shift your focus away from so much of a short-term ROI view, where all you care about is, are my campaigns profitable today, this month, and are they going to be profitable next month? Shift it away from focusing so much on just acquiring so many leads and so many customers. That's all fine and well, but what about the people that you've already paid to acquire, right? We all know it's so much cheaper to sell to someone who's already familiar with you, and they already have a relationship with your business. And this is really, really important. And I can't emphasize that enough, because that's something you have in your control. You can't control what your competition is bidding, but what you can control is what you're willing to bid based on your known expected LTV. The more sophisticated you get with it, the more granular you can get. If I know that it's more profitable for me to get a like to my page and then target my fans with an offer versus a cold audience, these are type of insights that we want to know. And we can track, it's possible to track to that level of detail today. It requires a little bit of tagging and a little bit of integration work with your CRM, but it is possible and it can be done. So I'll get off my soapbox about LTV, but I do want to emphasize that try to put more time, or try to at least focus a lot of your team's time on what is our LTV, how can we improve that, how can we drive that higher. Okay. Now, part 3 of this video, we're going to go to Ads Manager in a second, and we're going to talk about a view to a conversion. So try to do a little James Bond wordplay there. I'm not sure if it landed, but we're going to look at the view that we use in Ads Manager for mainly for our website conversion campaigns, which is primarily what we're focused on here. And this view is going to help you just be more efficient in your discovery and your forensics about what's going on with my campaign. Is it working? Why is it working? Why is it not working? So the way that we set our columns up is basically going from left to right. And again, I'll hop into Ads Manager in a second and show you this. But we're trying to go from delivery to clicks to leads to purchases where it's applicable, assuming your funnel includes all of those things. And we're also going to add frequency in there just to keep an eye on how saturated we are for a certain ad or offer or whatnot. Now, for each one of these metrics, we want to know the count, so how many, the cost per, and the value where applicable. So if it's just a lead campaign, you might not have value associated with your leads. I typically don't add lead value into our ad platform, even if I know the lead value, just to keep things clear cut that, hey, whatever shows up in our total conversion value is actual money that's being exchanged, not expected future value of a lead, right? I can do that sort of projection analysis outside of Facebook, but in Ads Manager, I really want to know what's my purchase conversion value versus what we're spending. And then if we know our LTV and we know our expected value of a lead, we can do some extrapolation from there. Okay, and if you get to the point where you know your LTV for different products and all these different little different granularities, then you can absolutely incorporate that into your tagging and your conversion value. And then we're also going to look at breakdowns and roll-ups. All right, so let's hop into Ads Manager. Okay, so now we're in Ads Manager, and I'm going to show you an example of the column setup that we talked about. Now, the reason that we're setting our columns up like this is I want to be able to look left to right, so moving from the left side here to the right, and I want to be able to see kind of a funnel view of what's going on, right? So we start with our typical stuff, what's our daily budget and amount spent, just for reference. I've got frequency here just so I can keep an eye on it. Reach, how many people are we reaching? And then we start getting into our breakdown. So the first thing we have to do is get our ad delivered, right? So CPM measures how much it costs us to get 1,000 impressions. Now, if you look at these ad sets, you see we have some wide variation amongst ad sets for CPM. A lot of that has to do with the audience size and how specific the audience is. So if they're different CPMs, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have a problem with one of your ad sets. You just need to be aware that it's going to cost you different amounts to reach people, and that can have a major impact on your final. If your funnel's optimized or headed towards a purchase down, further downstream, you see here CPM is almost 3x comparing this top ad set to the bottom one. So if we end up with a purchase conversion, or if we end up with a CPA, a cost per purchase that's higher for this last ad set, some of it's a factor of it's just tougher to reach them. And this is a lookalike audience. So typically the lookalikes can be a little bit more expensive. I believe that has to do with the specificity of the people you're trying to reach, how often they're online, and all that good stuff. So back to our columns. So, we start with CPM. How much does it cost me to deliver the ad? Now I've got click-through rate, link. So that's my overall click-through rate. But then I have unique clicks to links. I want to know how many people are clicking through. This will aid me with some conversion rate numbers I'll show you in a second. And I've got unique click-through rate, which is different than our total click-through rate because a person can see the ad many times. So the unique click-through rate, as you see here, is higher. So it doesn't really matter how many times, this is just at the person level. No matter how many times they see the ad, it's just like out of 100 people, two of them are clicking the ad. So the reason I'm interested in that is I want to know up front, do I have an issue with just getting people to my landing page? Let me show you this real quick in the view of where you'll set this up just for your reference. So I'm going to go to customize columns. Now I've already set these up, but you can see my columns over here. I've got ad set, budget, amount spent, frequency, reach, right? So some of the reach and CPM stuff is here at the top of in the performance section. You can also search these columns if you're just trying to set this up and follow along. But I've got frequency, reach, CPM, CTR link, unique clicks to link, unique CTR, cost per unique click to link, leads. So in our case, our funnel is, pull this up on whiteboard. This funnel in particular, they click the ad, go to a landing page where we have an opt-in box. So if they opt in there, that's a lead. And then on the next page, they can make a purchase or further down the funnel. So in this case, I've got 3 main events. I want to look at the cost, and then for my purchase, obviously, I want to look at ROI. and the value associated with that. But your funnel might be a little bit different. So you can apply this to other funnels. Just use the same kind of concept where, you might have a click, maybe you have a lead, maybe you had an add to cart event, then maybe you have several purchases in the funnel. In our case, we only have one purchase in this funnel. There's no upsells, but you might have several, like an initial purchase, which you could track with a custom conversion, which we talk about in that Facebook pixel guide I referenced earlier. So we might have a purchase one custom conversion. We would need the cost, the number, so the count, how many of those, and the value. We might have purchase two, custom conversion, same thing, cost, number, value. And then at the end, I typically roll it all up to the general purchase just to see overall profitability on the funnel when I compare my spend to my overall purchase conversion value, right, to get ROI. Because again, we want to optimize to ROI at least, not cost per purchase. It's not really, that only gives us part of the story. So again, you can apply this to different types of funnel setups, and your columns might be a little bit different, but the idea is the same. So again, we have lead, cost per lead, purchase, cost per purchase, and then purchase conversion value here at the bottom. Again, really important that you're passing your purchase values in your Facebook pixel in your purchase event tag, so you get this value accurately, and that it's dynamic based on what they actually ordered. Especially if you have a lot of products on the page and you don't know which one they're going to buy. You don't want to assume an average order value. That's basically throwing away a ton of valuable information that will help you optimize your campaign. All right, so yeah, that's the general idea. We're going left to right here, and this makes it easy to see if there's a problem in the campaign and where the problem is. If my cost per unique click to lead is really high, that means that I probably need to refresh my ad creative and come up with a more compelling hook. Because the point of the ad, really, just like in the old direct mail, the direct response, direct mail days of old, the purpose of the envelope is just to get them to open the envelope. The purpose of the headline is to get them to read the next line. The purpose of the next line is to get them to read the next line. I think Ray Edwards is the one who talked about that, famous copywriter. And same kind of deal here. I mean, there's obviously something to be said for consistency from the ad to the landing page. You don't want to have a picture of a cat in your ad and then some kind of corporate, really hardcore landing page with no resemblance to the ad, because that's going to cause issues with your conversion rates typically. But I want to see where the breakdown is, if there is a breakdown occurring. Are people just not opting in? So this view gives you an opportunity to see the different breaks in your funnel. So the click, the lead, the purchase, and where people are dropping off. Now you can obviously get this through your analytics platform as well, but I like to look at it in Facebook Ads Manager just because this is where I'm going to be making my decisions and where I'm going to be making adjustments. So it's good to just have it in one place, and that saves some time. Now, if you're seeing that you're getting clicks but you're not getting the leads, obviously you need to work on your landing page. And if you're getting leads but not purchases, maybe you need to work on the offer there. Maybe you need to work on the purchase sales page. So lots of things you could test, but this at least gives you an idea. Now, in terms of optimization, so comparing ad sets, keep in mind that some of these ad sets are warm. So the top ad set is a warm ad set. The next one is cold. So this one's cold to cold traffic. The next one is warm, and then cold and cold. So we got a mixture of warm and cold ad sets. And just keep that in mind when you're comparing performance here. Now, one cool thing about this view that you can do, and I wish Facebook would enable us to do this in Ads Manager, it would save some time, but you can export this to Excel. And let me just show you that really quick. I might put a link to this worksheet in the notes. But if we export this to Excel, what I'm going to look for is, so I've got the same data here. I've just renamed the ad sets. Warm, you got a couple warm, couple cold. And it's the same columns going across. But what I've done is I've added conversion rates So I've got a conversion rate of click to lead. So you can see here we have, that is L2 over I2. So how many leads divided by how many unique clicks to link, because I'm trying to look at this at the person level. So you can see we got pretty good conversion rates here. Some of the cold ad sets are converting better than the others. This one particular ad set is a cold, and it's got 53%, which is really good. It's better than one of my warm. Now, I'm not making decisions on conversion rate. I'm really just looking at conversion rate to try to diagnose if there's issues and where the fallout's occurring. So I've got a conversion rate of click to lead, then I added a conversion rate of lead to purchase. Same idea. We're just taking the total number of purchases and divided by the total number of leads. So you can see down here we got a really strong lead to purchase conversion rate. And then I do the total conversion rate of click to purchase. So again, these are just used for kind of supplementary information. I'm really looking at this last column, which is ROI, which is another calculated column I've added. All that is my purchase conversion value. So Q2 less D2, which is the amount spent, divided by D2 gives me the ROI, or ROAS, return on ad spend. And that's how I'll typically want to make decisions. Now, I know we talked earlier about LTV and how important that is and trying to optimize the LTV, but this is kind of the attainable short-term solution for most folks. One important note here, and I think I mentioned this earlier in the video, is we don't pass in a conversion value for lead. We don't pass in a value for any event other than purchase, because I'm really looking for money changing hands here in this kind of report. I'm looking for how much money do we spend and how much do we actually bring in. Okay. So hopefully, if you use this Excel kind of layout, it'll give you a better view into not only how your ads are performing to get people to your offer, but also how your funnel's performing. And lots of times, if you're trying to drastically improve your ad performance, some of the big gains will come from improving the underlying funnel. Because again, the ad is really just to get people to engage, click through, and get them to the site. But then once they get to the site, assuming you have decent ad consistency from the ad to the landing page, and when I say ad consistency, I'm talking about the messaging and the maybe even the images and so forth. A lot of the downstream stuff, how do they convert to leads and purchases, is going to be dependent upon your funnel. So don't focus, I'm not saying don't focus on optimizing your ads, but at the same time, all of this stuff plays and works together. All right, so real quick, let's look at breakdowns. So back in Ads Manager, if you go to this breakdown here, now the ones I typically like to look at, especially, there's a lot of ways that you can break these down, right? You can break it down by age, gender, the device, time of day, blah, blah, blah. The ones I really care about, like the first ones I usually check, are placement. And then inside the time section, I usually go either a weekly view or a bi-weekly view, depending on how long the campaign's been running. So let's look at placement first. Now, the reason this is important is some ads are going to perform better in different locations. You might find that if you're driving people to make a purchase, that you're getting better ROI off of your desktop, because people are they're more, it's, even though people are getting more and more used to making transactions on mobile, on a desktop environment, you might find that people are just converting, the conversions are working better. You're getting more ROI because people are, at a real computer with a keyboard and so forth, and they probably have a little more time versus if they're on the go on their phone. But that's not always the case, so we have to look at this. Now, I'm not going to go into the details like the decisioning here, but it's basically the same thing that we just did. We're going to look at the ROI based on placement. So you could export this the same way we did the overall view. Export this into Excel and compute your conversion rates and your ROI. Without doing the export, it's pretty easy to just look at spent versus conversion value. So you at a minimum level, we want to be able to do that. So I see Audience Network's got 3,200 spent, 3,200 made on 144 spent. And I could just calculate these up really quick with my calculator, figure out where we're getting the most ROI. Now, Facebook generally, if in this case, I'm optimizing for a purchase event, I'm not optimizing for clicks. So as long as we're getting enough conversions each day, Facebook's going to do a pretty good job on its own of sorting out where people are, where to serve the reach to get the best, get the most purchases. But remember that Facebook's not, if you choose purchase as your conversion objective, Facebook's not really optimizing for ROI. They're optimizing to get you more purchases. And so, kind of inherently to get you a lower CPA, which we talked about ad nauseum. It's only part of the story. So this is why it does require some manual oversight and some manual kind of tinkering to be sure that you might be getting lower costs per purchase from one placement versus another, but how much are they spending and all that good stuff. So when I look at that, I'm just looking for maybe the way the ad's set up. If we don't have different ads for different placements, like in this case, we're just running them all through one ad set. Sometimes my ads will just perform better in different locations. You might have Instagram in here as well. So if we see that an ad's not doing well on a certain placement, I might break out, create a new creative and new copy specifically for the placement that's struggling, especially Instagram versus Facebook. I see that a lot. And the other thing would be, if you notice that you're not getting any reach on one of the placements, like sometimes Facebook, as I said earlier, they do a decent job of optimizing this across the placements for you. But sometimes you'll find that it gets stuck in like mobile newsfeed, and none of these other placements are really getting any reach, because typically it's easier to get reach on places like right-hand column, audience network, mobile, desktop newsfeed. As you can see from the CPM here, might be a little bit tougher to get reach. And so if you see that your theory is, well, I think I could do well on desktop with this offer, you might want to split out desktop into its own ad set versus whatever, if you're getting a ton of serve in mobile newsfeed. So yeah, you can look at this at the ad set level. You can look at it at the ad level, any granularity you want, really. Now the other breakdown I really like is the time, because I want to see how it's performing over time. And what I'm really looking for here is either acceleration in results or deceleration / fatigue in results. So if I cut this to a 2-week view, I'm going to be looking over time. And again, this is where a spreadsheet, exporting to a spreadsheet comes in handy, because you can just create the ROI formula and drag it down for all these different bi-weekly periods. But I'm looking at my cost per purchase. So if you notice here, this is kind of interesting. We went from $4 up to $17 over that last period. Now that was this is only 5 days, because we're looking at bi-weekly, and it just happened. My date range up here ends at the end of January. So you got to take that with a grain of salt, but still, we're seeing like 4, 8, 4, 8, 17. Look at some of these other ones. It's kind of sporadic. I don't see anything too systematic going on, but if you do see something systematic where it's just ramping up continuously over time, then I might consider refreshing the ads or pausing that, lowering the budget for a while, giving that audience a bit of a breather on that specific offer. And yeah, it just gives you an idea of how things are changing for you. Like this one's interesting because we were at $48 CPA. And again, I'm just using CPA because it's easy to see right here. Typically, I would look at ROI. But yeah, we're also looking at the, so we're seeing that it went from 48 down to 4, which is kind of interesting. Now, the other thing I like to look at with the time-based breakdown is a daily. And I want to see how many conversions I'm getting each day relative to my optimization objective. So remember that if we're using 1-day click-through, which I am here, 1-day click-through conversion window in the ad set settings and optimizing for a purchase, we want to see that we're getting at least 5 to 10 purchases a day. Typically, it's okay that it's going to be clumpy. You're not always going to get that many. But I'll scroll down and just be sure, some of these ad sets like this one, for instance, this cold ad set, we might be better off just moving this into its own, or switching the objective here to something higher up in the funnel, because we're only getting like 1 or 2 a day. And Facebook's not getting enough juice, so to speak, to optimize properly. So this one would be a candidate for switching to add to cart or lead or something higher up in the funnel. And then we could test to see if that drives down our cost and increases our ROI. So, you can use your conversion windows at 1 day or 7 day or whatever. We'll talk about conversion windows a little bit more in the last video, the bonus video of common mistakes that we see on Facebook. But that pretty much does it. Now, the other thing that you can do is the roll up. So if you click this expansion arrow down here, you can, right now we're looking at it broken down by ad set. But if I click this, it's going to give me the total across all the ad sets. So that's also kind of handy to have. The total amount. The other way you can do that is through just saying, you can click this drop down. I have some ad sets selected here, so it's not going to let me do it, but you can just change it to be this campaign or whatever. So if you wanted to see it at the campaign level, but with the same breakdowns, you can do that with this drop down. Or if you want to see it at the ad level, you can do it here. So that's breakdowns and roll-ups and kind of how we use those. And again, we're looking for ROI typically if the campaign or the objective is purchases and you have purchases in your funnel. All right, so one other thing I wanted to talk about before we end this video. This has been a long video. One thing, the Rudd technique that I mentioned earlier, if you remember Paul Rudd from the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall, where he's trying to teach, I forget his name, Jason Segel or whatever his name is, how to surf. He just keeps saying, do less. No, do less, do less. And he's like just standing still, but he's still telling him to do less. One of the things I would recommend is, especially when you're launching new campaigns, is just do less, especially for the first 4 to 5 days. So if you're setting your budget, maybe $50 a day or whatever it is, you should go into it knowing that you're going to spend $500 or 5 times whatever your budget is just to get an idea of what's going on. So in the first 5 days, the first couple of days really are kind of a crapshoot. It's just like Facebook's trying to sort out who's going to convert, what your conversion rate's going to be. And so typically when you look at your performance of your ads over time, your chart will look something like this. Day 1, so if this is day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, and then day 6 and on. Day 1's kind of random sometimes. You want to try to launch the campaigns early in the day, give it a full day. But typically the chart looks something like this. Assuming you're getting enough conversions each day in your ad sets for Facebook to optimize. And this chart would look different if you're on a 7-day conversion window, because this kind of extends out. So for a 7-day conversion window, the first optimization is not going to run until 7 days of data have been collected. So for 7 days, you might see something a little bit more like this. And then at the 7-day, hopefully it goes down. So keep in mind your conversion window and the fact that Facebook needs data and it needs to be fed conversions in order to optimize, and thus it needs time to get to that optimal level. I see a lot of people that run stuff for 2 days and then kill it if it's not working. But if you see here, day 2 and day 3, typically not days you want to be pausing stuff because you're not even giving yourself a chance. So use the Rudd technique, give stuff 3 to 4 days, maybe 5 days to breathe. It depends on your budget that you're spending. The more you're spending, hopefully you get more data and you get more conversions, and Facebook can optimize quicker. But especially if you're spending $10, $20 a day, you're going to need to give these things some time to breathe. All right, so that's it for this video. Next video 3, we're going to talk about reconciling results across sources. So Facebook versus Google Analytics versus your database. We'll talk about why you're going to see differences. We're going to explain how you can avoid going on these wild goose chases of saying, well, Facebook doesn't match Google Analytics, and my database is saying that I got 10 purchases today, but Facebook says I got 12. So I'm going to give you some of the reasons why that happens, how to mitigate it as best you can, and then how to operate in this world where we really don't. You're never going to completely solve that problem, just as a spoiler for that video. But I'm going to give you the nitty gritty on how to attack that issue. All right, thanks for sticking through this long video. Hopefully this information has been helpful. I think the stuff on LTV in particular is of utmost importance. And yeah, thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.